Greetings one and all, and welcome to the Riders Railway Vlogs, a new series of videos detailing my adventures at various heritage railways across the UK. I am the Nightmare Rider, Major Mine, reminding you as always that even a cheeseburger can be deconstructed as original source. Over the past year or so I have spent a lot of time rekindling my fascination with trains of all kinds. I mostly buried this interest post high school due to having no one to talk about with, but now that I have both friends who I can relate to on the subject and a new platform, pun intended, and pause for obvious meme reference.
I like singing. I like dancing.
I like trains.
Thank you. To express my hobby on, I am catching up on visiting all the places I wanted to as a child but never had the opportunity to do so. In this video, I'll be talking about my trip to the Great Central Railway for its Autumn Steam Gala back in October of last year. I'll be using quite a few British Railway terms in this video. All of them have little annotations on it just so you don't get lost in all the technical jargon. The Great Central Railway is an 8-mile long stretch of heritage line from Loughborough Central to Leicester North, being unique among heritage railways to be almost entirely laid out a double-track line. The staff and volunteers preserved the section of the now disused Great Central Main Line, which is a big express route until the 1960s, when a significant portion of Britain's railway lines were closed down, seemingly for good. The Autumn Steam Gala was my first visit to the railway, as a prospect of being able to go up and down the line as many times as I pleased, among other attractions, is something you don't get on most heritage railways. Being a railway enthusiast that I am, the journey to the heritage line was something I enjoyed as a bonus to the gala itself. From Warrington Central Station, I took the East Midland trains run Class 158 diesel multiple unit, or DMU for short. The 158 nicknamed the Express Sprinter, as it is faster than the smaller trains in the Sprinter family, with a higher top speed and air conditioning, among other things. I love them simply for the big seats and wide windows East Midland trains gives them, giving a very comfortable ride and plenty to see outside. After changing around Nottingham, the train I caught was the Class 222 Meridian DMU. I had never ridden these before, but on further research they confirmed my suspicion that they were being similar to the Class 222 Voyager and Class 221 Super Voyager DMUs, which are diesel variants of the Class 290 Pendolino Tilting Electric Multiple Unit, or EMU. Much like the 158, East Midland trains have some wonderful seats in these trains, especially for standard class. When I finally got to Loughborough, it was just a short walk down to Loughborough Central Station, where I was greeted by the LMS EVAT Class 2MT260 in British Rail black livery. These low-powered locomotives were built with a tender variant of the 262 tank locomotives, providing a very successful and great range, able to carry 3,000 imperial gallons of water and 4 tons of coal. These locomotives proved so successful that when the big 4 railway companies were nationalised under British Rail, the design was more or less copied for the BR Standard Class 2, but only a few subtle differences between the two, such as a smaller cab to fit under all the tunnels across the network, taller chimneys and slightly wider cylinders, although to be honest, you can really only spot the differences if you know what to look for. Next train I spotted running around was the loco that I had more or less overlooked when reading about it online. Number 30777 Sir Lamiel is the LSWR N15 class in Southern Green livery. Being from Cheshire County in the northwest of England, Southern locos are not exactly part of my local history. Originally built in 1919, the 460 locomotive has quite an extensive history with engineers, going through 3 subclass names before settling under one of the King Arthur class locomotive family under the Southern Railway. Initially designed as a passenger express loco by Robert Urey, it was redesigned by Richard Mansuel and further modified by Oliver Bulleid, responsible for the iconic Bulleid Pacifics. Even though I've always been more interested in LMS locos, seeing the big smoke deflectors, long tenders and striking green livery in person makes it extremely hard not to appreciate this locomotive as a fine representative of this region. This particular loco worked right up until the end of steam on BR in 1962, although it is mainline certified and still continues to hold rail tours on occasion to this day. After a quick look at some stationary diesel locomotives and watching the Class 101 DMU pull in, I got a good glimpse of one of the locos I've been looking forward to seeing, the LMS Stanier 8F280 in beautiful maroon livery. This loco was designed as a heavy freight version of William Stanier's jack-of-all-trades success story, the Black 5, and with the amount of freight trains going on during the day, it was certainly put to good use. The design was also copied by a later company, as alongside the 8F, World War II saw the introduction of the War Department's Austerity 280s, which was a cheaper, stripped-down version that managed the resource better and played a vital part in freight shipment during the war. While unfortunately the Black 5 from this railway wasn't in operation today, seeing the 8F working tip and tail formation with another loco was more than enough to make up for it. It was after lunch that I finally saw the primary loco I had come to see, the GNR N2062T. These mighty tank locos have been surprisingly high tractor effort at nearly 20,000 pounds of force in comparison to the 217K, designed to use this might for hauling suburban passenger trains or 8 carriages out of London's King's Cross. What really grabs my attention about this loco was just how big it was for a tank engine. We all have the archetype of the small tank engines and big tender engines in our heads, but this seems to break the mould. The beautiful apple green livery painted across the huge side tanks, as well as the short chimney, looks to me like someone took a tender locomotive, chopped it in half and stuck water tanks on the side. Designed by Sir Nigel Bresley, the same man who designed the famous LNER A4s, number 1744 is a sole survivor of its class, distinctly fitted with steam condensing pipes, much like the Metropolitan Railway locomotives of the London Underground before electric trains were introduced. It would be a little while before this train was due to leave, so after watching the firemen fill up its tanks fresh with water and seeing a Class 101 go by, I decided to have a quick mooch around the workshop shed. There wasn't a lot to see there, but there was what I believed to be another 8F in the process of restoration. Once I was done, I went back to the station platform where I was greeted by another guest loco of the day, the BR Standard Class 4 260. This is a brilliant example of what the Standard Class engineers had in mind for their original locos: high running plates above the wheels, low tenders and standardised controls across all Standard Class engines. This was working top and tail formation with the Standard Class 2, slowly hauling a load of locally built wagons up and down the line. Its primary duties were working freight, and with the large 5'3" driving wheels, it was more than enough for the job. What I saw next was the locomotive I have seriously fallen in love with since this visit. This is the penultimate in British steam locomotive design. Wearing a darker Brunswick green livery, the BR Standard Class 9F 210 had run around behind the N2 for the next train along. These were the biggest of the heavy freight locomotives built by British Rail in 1954. It has all the hallmarks of a locomotive that is pleasing to my eye: high running plates, many driving wheels, long boiler, big smoke deflectors and more. Despite its heavy weight limiting its route availability, its 20 by 28 inch cylinders gave it a tractive effort of 39,667 pounds of force, so it could haul even the heaviest freight trains with ease, let alone a gentle passenger load on a heritage railway. But soon it was time to hop on the N2's train, which was quite a bit of fun considering how relatively quick it was in acceleration. Heritage railways tend not to be particularly fast, mostly due to length, but I still noted there was a decent speed between the stations regardless. I disembarked for the second stop, Rockley Station, where the 8F come to pull the train back towards Loughborough. After a couple of snaps in the 8F's cab, the train pulled by the 9F came into the adjacent platform. Getting out close to the machine really makes you appreciate just how huge it actually is, which makes it a real shame that the 9F's got such a short lifespan on mainline use, as less than 10 years after its first release, its steam was discontinued for use on British Rail. Although on the other hand, you could say this is beneficial for working preservation, as the 9 of the 251 preserved proved to be a very good working order when not under overhaul. On the way down from Leicester North, I attempted to take photos of the passing trains, but alas the shutter speed on my phone isn't fast enough, so I barely got good photos of all the coaches on the other trains were pulling. What I did manage to see was some disused coaches in a small diesel engine. I'm not sure if they were ever intended to be restored or not, but they do look pretty run down. The GCR has 5 miles of double track line, with the extra 3 miles of being a single track line right up to Leicester North, where there is a small loop for the loco to run round at the other end. The 9F felt a fair bit slower than the N2, but considering it's designed for power and freight haulage rather than passenger service, it didn't bug me much. There wasn't much I noticed in particular on the way back, apart from the Class 08 diesel shunter, although the carriage it had in front of it did look quite shiny and well kept. After a bit of timetable confusion, I decided to head to Cornwall Woodhouse in the BR Standard Class 101 DMU. This thing was considerably more primitive than the Sprinters built in the mid-80s, and since it was a diesel mechanical transmission rather than diesel hydraulic or electric, it was quite a noisy ride. Despite this and not so comfortable bench seats, there was an advantage that I could see clearly what the driver was doing, as well as seeing out of the front, which is something you only only ever get on trams these days. I had a bit of time before the next train down to Leicester North, so I took a few small photos of the 101 and one of the standard classes reversing back before heading down on the train hauled by Sir Lamiel. I found the journey to be pretty relaxing, especially because the N15 showed perfectly how well it's suited for the easy life of heritage railways. As much as I'd love to be on the footplate of one of these locomotives, it's quite expensive, so I doubt I'll be doing it anytime soon. After a brief glimpse of a tram engine, what really caught my eye at Ropley was the miniature garden railway that was running. I'm not sure what scale they are, I think it might be HO, but it was a cute little accessory next to the full-size trains running past. The kids at the railway on that day seemed to love them, that's for certain. I got off at Leicester North and got a nice cab photo of Sir Lamiel, the crew hard at work preparing for the journey back, and Upton on the way back with his two mineral vans with the words Necropolis on the side. I had no idea what they were supposed to be carrying, but needless to say the skull and crossbones didn't leave much to the imagination. The 9F and the 2MT were busy pulling freight back up in preparation for the travelling post office, but first, LNER class D49 Morrisshire 440 with BR Black and livery came down to drop off more passengers. This is another sole survivor of this class, using 3 cylinders to haul a modest tractor effort of 21,556 pounds of force. The announcement came over the station speakers to make our way down to the other side of the tracks close to where the car park was for the TPO to be demonstrated. During the days of steam, mail would be picked up and dropped off via hook and net at a high speed without the train stopping. This was taken care of by the BR Standard Class 2, travelling at 30 miles an hour right through the station. I did a small video of this, but unfortunately the setting sunlight obscured the actual drop-off happening, so it's impossible to see clearly what happened through my video. But after that, it was time to head back to Loughborough Central to make sure I had enough time to get the train home. Final train of the day was hauled by the N2, so once I arrived back in Loughborough, I tried to get a few photos of the cylinders in the inside, but alas, they were blocked by the wheels, so instead I got a hand taking a selfie of the loco behind it, next to the strawberry and cream coloured coaches. I was hoping to get a glimpse of the LMS Fowler Class 3F gin team before I left, but each time it went past me, I had just missed it and couldn't get a clear shot. After that, I had a quick look around the little museum at Loughborough Central. There was a surprising amount of stuff in such a small place. The museum seemed to hold everything, from a tiny model railway, 00 gauge model trains, a large pannier tank model, and lots of signs. After a quick snap of the 8F and the 9F, it finally came time to head home. On the way back to Nottingham Station, I managed to snap photo of the BR Class 60 diesel hauling tankers somewhere, and an Intercity 125 HST in East Midland Trains livery. The HST is one of the more famous diesel trains in the UK, since it not only revolutionised high-speed travel across the network, but the BR Class 43 power car is the fastest diesel locomotive in the world with a record speed of 148 miles an hour. The prototype of which, incidentally, is now running on the Great Central Railway at Nottingham. Overall, I had an amazing day at the Great Central Railway Autumn Steam Gala. There were some truly unique locos there, showing examples from almost every corner of the country save for the Great Western engines. This is an absolutely ideal place for any railway enthusiast like myself to go for a day out, and I can't wait for this Winter Steam Gala later this month. Until the next time, this is the Nightmare Rider, Major Mind, signing out.